at once.
Let her go, dude. Let her go. Let her go, man. I'm telling you right now. Don't do it. Okay. Hey.
He got his gun out. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. They got their guns out. Oh, he just killed this man.
What would you do if you found out a good friend from high school became suicidal one night, got shot by police, and then thrown into prison? In this video series, I introduced you to a guy I played high school basketball with 25 years ago. I gave you a fair representation of a tragic incident one night where he gave in to despair, not unlike George Bailey. I showed you that the police version of events can't be trusted at face value, and in the process demonstrated that oversight from Texas Rangers investigations can be weak or non-existent, and then later swept under the rug by a broken open records law. You may not agree that we've established Heath Stoneman's outright innocence in this case. That's okay, but before you register your final verdict, why don't we see if we can answer one final question? Was the shooting of Heath Stoneman justified? The answer to this question doesn't simply impact Heath Stoneman. It goes directly to the balance of power between citizens and their government. The authority to use deadly force is an awesome power that equates with law enforcement becoming judge, jury, and executioner. If we the people are going to grant such an awesome power, is it too much to ask that thorough oversight be brought to bear on the exact circumstances of its use every time it is used?
Chief Justice, and may it please the Court, there are two issues in this case. The first deals with the constitutionality of a state statute with regard to the use by a police officer of all necessary means to effect an arrest. The second is whether the municipality's use of deadly force to apprehend a fleeing burglary suspect after exhausting all other reasonable means is constitutionally permissible. They lend themselves to show that the officer involved had probable cause to believe that a felony had been committed.
And people like 15-year-old Garner.
Mr. Winter, the Tennessee law does require some kind of a warning by the officer to the suspect.
Yeah, and I take it false police is sufficient. I mean, the officer neither here nor in many other cases said, "Stop or I'll shoot." Garner had no specific warning from the officer.
But was told to stop by an officer in uniform.
In 1985, the Supreme Court ruled in Tennessee v. Garner that deadly force may not be used merely because a suspect is attempting to escape. It doesn't matter if a felony has been committed. Additionally, resisting arrest is not a sufficient cause either. In order for lethal force to be justified, the court said the officer must possess probable cause to believe the suspect poses a threat of serious physical harm to themselves or others. It is at this point that many police officers, either through poor training or ignorance, make the mistake of concluding that probable cause is all they need to shoot a suspect. That is incorrect. In the 1989 case called Graham v. Connor, the court further specified that The test of reasonableness under the Fourth Amendment requires careful attention to the facts and circumstances of each particular case, including the severity of the crime at issue, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat to the safety of officers or others, and whether he is actively resisting arrest or attempting to evade arrest by flight. Thus, if a suspect threatens the officer with a weapon, or there is probable cause to believe he has committed a crime involving the infliction or threatened infliction of serious physical harm, deadly force may be used, if necessary, to prevent escape, and if, where feasible, some warning has been given. These aren't the only relevant cases, they're just the main ones. You may have noticed the replaying of the sounds of Stoneman's shooting, which occurred 31 seconds after 1:11 a.m. on June 6, 2012. The most important feature of the recording isn't what you can hear, it is what you can't hear. The silence is the evidence that the police did not provide Heath Stoneman with a feasible warning before shooting him. Usually such warnings are accompanied with a lawful order, which is also not heard on the audio. The feasibility of warning or ordering Stoneman stems from the fact that snipers knew Stoneman was present on his front porch for approximately 10 minutes. According to officers present at the scene that night and monitoring communications on the Special Operations Channel. Officers who shoot suspects when facts turn out to be other than they believed, such as when an unarmed suspect is shot, almost always claim that events developed too quickly to assess the situation fully, but that they acted reasonably in the moment. "10 minutes isn't a moment. It's 600 moments or more." These cases where officers claim a warning was not feasible almost always involve a subject who is fleeing or resisting arrest. So you would think at a minimum, with the sniper's failure to warn or order, that Stoneman must have been moving around, running, or in general behaving erratically. Unfortunately for the snipers, they both admit that Stoneman was immobile in virtue of his being seated, not in a chair, but directly on the ground, quote-unquote Indian style, as the snipers claim. So he wasn't fleeing, he wasn't resisting arrest. We already covered the fact that no one said anything to Stoneman, didn't give him any orders, place him under detention or arrest. They didn't even communicate with him at all for 90 minutes. So what's next? Snipers claim Stoneman was armed. Did he point a gun at them? Did he threaten them? No, he was just sitting there, looking at his cell phone. Sykes does say that Stoneman picked up the gun. Doesn't say he pointed the gun at Sykes. Just says he felt like Stoneman saw him and was going to fire his gun at them. So he shot him.
Jesus Christ.
I'm including these extended passages because they describe what happened immediately before they shot Stoneman. They're not a substitute for reading the entire reports, which themselves are not very long. So their statements tell us he wasn't resisting arrest, he wasn't fleeing the scene. The silence in the audio tells us that Sykes and Chance weren't issuing orders. They weren't warning Stoneman before they shot him to put his gun down or they were going to shoot him. And from Stoneman's perspective, we're not talking about something that was just a moment in time. We're talking about 90 minutes where the Odessa Police Department didn't communicate anything to him at all. The feasibility of issuing a command or warning to Stoneman prior to shooting him is no more complicated than the fact that Sykes and Chance were deployed as a team. Sniper teams are supposed to deploy with one member acting as the spotter and the other the shooter. This could have allowed one of them to yell out to Stoneman and identify themselves, issue a warning of pending lethal force, and give Stoneman clear orders for how to avoid this outcome. If that had happened, you wouldn't be watching this video. A reasonable officer would have noted that even though they were both operating as snipers, they still outnumbered and outgunned Stoneman. They had a tactical advantage in the moment. They had 10 minutes to decide what to do. It wasn't 2 against 1. The snipers had an armored personnel carrier full of armed SWAT personnel. In addition, they had about 14,000 police officers in the driveway next to Stoneman's neighbor. But they specifically asked the APC to back up, and then later claimed they felt fear that Stoneman saw them and would shoot at them. The excessive force inquiry includes not only the officer's actions at the moment that the threat was presented, but also may include their actions in the moments leading up to the suspect's threat of force. Sevier v. City of Lawrence, Kansas, 1997. At this point, many will claim that just because he wasn't fleeing and wasn't resisting arrest doesn't mean he wasn't an immediate threat to the snipers or others because he was armed. And sure, the snipers may have made a mistake that put themselves in danger by requesting that the APC back up. Never mind that they didn't issue a feasible warning. To cops at least, that's forgivable. Okay, so at least you agree if he wasn't armed, then the shooting was not justified. First, the incident log never records a claim that Stoneman was armed during the second incident. Another convenient omission? I made the case early on that this was a cover-up. Without further ado, I present to you ordinary analysis that law enforcement in Texas refused to perform because they knew it was so damning to their case. When the snipers fired 2 shots at Stoneman, they created 4 wounds. That means 1 bullet caused all 4 wounds, or 1 bullet caused 3 wounds and the other one caused 1 wound, or each bullet caused 2 wounds. Well, that sounds complicated. What we need to do is visualize this.
Help me, Clarence! Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me!
This forensic analysis of Stoneman's wounds is consistent with Stoneman being on his phone when he was shot and not holding a gun. Alongside these shocking facts, we now place additional corroborating evidence that Stoneman was on the phone when he was shot. He was on the phone because the police said he was on the phone. He was on the phone because the sniper said that he placed his phone on the ground, but the physical evidence shows that the phone is embedded in the dirt. It was dropped, not placed. He was on the phone because his phone records indicate he was on the phone. He was on the phone because the person who called him said he was on the phone. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this witness was never questioned about this magical, exonerating phone call. Not by the Odessa Police Department, not by the Texas Rangers, not by the district attorney.
Did you know you were the last person to talk to him before he got shot?
Kind of figured because when we had, when I was talking to him, I was trying to, kind of calm him down, make it, stop, whatever was going on.
Yeah.
And I was telling him to please, consider things and think about his little girls and I was trying to do all that, and that's the last time I spoke to him.
Do you remember how long you were on the phone with him?
I was on the phone, about a good 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes, and he spoke to me a little while. I was trying to see what was going on, and maybe I could help.
I don't simply believe that the forensics indicate Stoneman couldn't have been holding a gun. I believe that he probably didn't have a gun anywhere near him. OPD claims he did, and that they moved it upon approaching him after he got shot. Crime Scene 101 from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Upon arrival, secure the scene. Make sure everyone is safe. Then, investigate. Preserve evidence. Some criminologists say you should never move a weapon if you can simply move an injured person away from the weapon. I admit it's mostly up to the officer on the scene, but there's a price to pay if you move something critical. In Texas, from the official crime scene training, on the topic of chain of custody, it says, each time the evidence exchanges possession from one person to another or moves from one location to another, the investigator must record this transaction. Handling this poorly can go to the admissibility or the weight of the evidence. Let's have a look at what the OPD did that night with regard to the gun found in Stoneman's yard. First, the SWAT team initially drove the armored personnel carrier between the snipers and Stoneman, so they were asked to back up. The snipers took their shots, so the APC moved back up in front of his house. They then got out and approached Stoneman. They didn't know the sniper shot him, but they approached him cautiously nonetheless. They came walking up sort of like this. Armando Garcia was in front at what's called the breach position. Next came Jeff Daniels and Randall Jones, who were right and left flank. Behind them was Jesse Garcia, assistant team leader, followed by Brad Davis, who was the team lead, and bringing up the rear was Mike Anaya, the SWAT supervisor. Observing their approach was Pat Chadwick, a hostage negotiator who was manning the spotlight from inside the APC, and Saulo Bravo, who was providing cover from the turret atop the APC. Mr. I verbally identified myself as the police officer. Mitch Upchurch was apparently nearby as well. So how did the gun get from the front porch where Stoneman was sitting to the front yard next to the tree? That all depends on which official story you believe. There are two camps on this. Let's start with story B, because Mike Anaya is the main actor in it, and ironically he was fired from OPD for lying. Story B goes like this. The SWAT team approached Stoneman and quickly handcuffed him because he started to move. With Stoneman secure, the team located the keys to the front door, which were apparently on the ground near him. With the front door breached, they proceeded to further clear the house. While the team was doing that, SWAT supervisor Anaya stayed with Stoneman. The medical team was called in, but it's not clear if that happened either before or after Anaya lifted the gun and carried it to the front yard. Anaya's sworn statement is, quote, "I secured the shotgun and laid it by the tree in the front yard. I had Corporal Upchurch stand watch over the shotgun," end quote. Chadwick, inside the APC with the spotlight, backs this up saying, quote, "I observed Sergeant Anaya take possession of a shotgun that was near the subject. Sergeant Anaya moved the shotgun away from the subject and placed it near a tree in the front yard," end quote. Corporal Upchurch, Mr. Highly Specific except for certain important details, adds this unusual description. He says he watched, quote, "a SWAT team member remove the shotgun and place it in the front yard," end quote. Anaya, Chadwick, Upchurch. Story B. The chain of custody is Anaya from the front porch to the tree. Now story A. Armando Garcia, Daniels, and Jones approached Stoneman and all say he wasn't moving. But assistant team lead Jesse Garcia tells Daniels to secure the gun, so he picks it up and passes it to Jesse Garcia. According to Daniels, team leader Davis barks in an order to handcuff Stoneman, so Daniels says he did that. Problem is, Jesse Garcia says he issued the order to handcuff Stoneman and describes this, quote, "I observed Officer Armando Garcia handcuff the subject," end quote. Wow, now we've got two guys supposedly handcuffing Stoneman, who is on the walkway bleeding profusely, and depending on who you believe, either moving or not moving. Randall Jones says Daniels did indeed handcuff Stoneman and pass the gun back to Jesse Garcia. Let's keep going with that. Jesse Garcia acknowledges receiving the shotgun, but doesn't say who handed it to him. Quote, "A shotgun was located on the ground near the subject. The shotgun was handed to me, and I handed it to Corporal Brad Davis." I couldn't make this up any better than it was made up. Brad Davis describes the situation thus, quote, "Alpha team moved to the target location behind bunker, where the weapon was removed from his immediate area and placed in the front yard," end quote. In story A, there's no mention of Anaya. The chain of custody, exponentially loosely speaking, is Daniels to Jesse Garcia to Brad Davis to Ether. If you can't trust story A because of story B and vice versa, we have to consider story C, which is that at 11:43 p.m. Stoneman was in his front yard with a weapon, and the cops yelled at him and startled him. He dropped the weapon then and returned to his house unarmed. When police found the wounded Stoneman without the gun, They had to create a story of how the weapon left his possession on the porch and ended up in the yard. And in their haste to do this well, they created 2 stories instead of 1. Was Stoneman moving when you first saw him? Yes or no? Did you see a gun? Yes or no? Did you touch the gun? Yes or no? No one even says precisely where the gun was found. The reason why they didn't offer up that information was because they knew they would all come up with a different answer. And nobody explained how the shotgun shells got underneath the gun. Stoneman drops back to pass. Is it 11:43 p.m. or 1:11 a.m.? The shotgun's picked up by Texas Ranger Don Williams at 6:37 a.m. Bothwell's there with a digital camera to document the exact time of discovery. But wait, Jeff Daniels has it. Off to Jesse Garcia now, Brad Davis, and then, we're not sure. Someone has it over to another, it's Mike Anaya. He's going to take it all the way from the porch to the tree. Impossible. Now off to Captain Eccles, who filed no written report. Now Captain Jesse Duarte, no written report as well. Sergeant Sampson, no report. Sergeant Davidson, no report. Lieutenant Thomas, also no report. Sergeant DePorto filed no report. Sergeant Matt Davison, no report. Lieutenant Rick Pippins, no report. Corporal Cody Watts, also no written report. Corporal Ryan Thompson, no report.
Right here at 3 o'clock, your heart beating like a hammer just before the dogs attacked. Oh, you killed him with a phone call, sir. I'll bet my life on it. A very simple case. Not that I'm particularly bright, sir. I must say, I found you disappointing. I mean your incompetence. You left enough clues to sink a ship. Motive, opportunity. And for a man of your intelligence, sir, you got caught in a lot of stupid lies. A lot of them.
So why did they do it? Why did they shoot? We may never know, but anyone with half a brain can see from their complete sworn statements that darkness was a key factor that night. They admit that they could only see Stoneman by the light of his cell phone. Then, when the armored personnel carrier arrived on scene with a spotlight, they claimed they could see Stoneman. Of course, they failed to recognize that if Stoneman was spotlighted, he couldn't see beyond the spotlight and thus couldn't have assaulted them as they claim. As for the shooting, I think the more likely explanation is they shot simply because they couldn't see Stoneman due to low light.
Why'd you want to save me?
That's what I was sent down for. I'm your guardian angel. I know everything about you.